Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. I'm Megan Shaw and here are your top stories on Wednesday the 7th of January. Iced out. Cold weather causes chaos in Tunbridge Wells as water boss faces frosty reception in Parliament.
Lots of small treatment works supplying local communities, and Tunbridge Wells is a classic example of that. It's reliant on one single source.
Millions missing in Medway as cash-strapped council seeking exceptional financial support from government.
People know that we've been in a really challenging financial set of circumstances. We're continuing to work through that.
And we've never seen anything like this. Maidstone Goat Sanctuary rescues newborn goats abandoned in a bin. Our top story tonight, from late November to mid-December last year, households in Tunbridge Wells were subjected to weeks of issues with their water supply, and now around 500 homes have had the issues return. These problems occurred while the CEO of South East Water, David Hinton, was being questioned by a committee at the Houses of Parliament. And Finn is down at one of the water supply stations in Bidborough, just outside of the town now. So Finn, you're down there now, so tell us what's happened and talk us through the timeline of these water issues in Tunbridge Wells.
Well, that's right, Meg. I'm here at the Bidborough Village Hall, where one of these supply stations has been set up. You can probably hear some cars going past, and people have been turning up from as far as I've been here to collect their water. And it's like you say, 500 homes, and South East Water have actually recently stated that's closer to 4,000 customers who have been without water today. Many here in Tunbridge Wells thought it's a new year, a fresh start, but these water issues have returned. They aren't to the same scale that they were back in 2025, but it is still concerning for some of the locals here. And you may notice my signal might be a bit patchy, and that's because Bidborough is quite a rural area. It's 20 minutes away from the town centre of Tunbridge Wells, and there's also areas to the south of Tunbridge Wells that are being affected, including the area of Frant. Now, you mentioned the timeline there. In terms of tonight and the recent events, 11 p.m. last night, South East Water updated their Aqua Alert website saying they expected supplies to return this morning. They said, however, it's likely to be intermittent throughout the day. And as of right now, we don't know exactly when this will return. But for locals here in Tunbridge Wells, it seems like more of the same thing. Obviously, back in the 29th of November through to the 12th of December, there were frequent water issues, including a boil notice. That was wrapped up around the 12th of December once that boil notice was lifted, but it's as you say, and for 4,000 customers here in these rural areas of Tunbridge Wells, they have been affected.
And Finn, these new supply issues have actually come alongside the South East Water CEO being questioned in Parliament yesterday, so tell us, what do we know so far?
That's absolutely right. So we contacted South East Water for a statement about the new water issues, obviously alongside the CEO, David Hinton, being questioned in Parliament. They told us that this new supply issue is due to a series of burst water mains in the Tunbridge Wells area following the cold weather. We actually have more on this as our reporter Naila Mohammed has been in the area finding out more about these new issues. Hi, can you hear me? And we can hear more from Naila Mohammed now.
You may remember at the end of November, Tunbridge Wells lost its water supply. Around 24,000 homes and businesses didn't have access to clean water due to a bad batch of treatment chemicals which led to a water outage. And yesterday, 3 weeks after the boil water ban was lifted, David Hinton, the CEO of South East Water, appeared in Parliament where he answered questions from EFRA and MPs.
The response was by far and away the biggest response we've ever done. And the amount of resources we put on it was by far and away the largest we've ever put.
Well, it was probably the biggest failure you've ever had, was it not?
In terms of customers impacted, this wasn't the biggest impact.
The effects of the water crisis are still being felt in Tunbridge Wells today.
Mr Hinton rated how South Eastern Water dealt with the situation an 8 out of 10 and claimed that it was unavoidable and he takes ultimate responsibility for it. But what do the people of Tunbridge Wells really think?
They were a bit backwards in coming forwards. I think, you know, the CEO should have got out there on TV and informed the town.
He should invest quite a lot of money in the local infrastructure, in our local water supply, the mains, the reservoirs, so this doesn't happen again.
They need to look at that. They need to get their systems engineers on it and assess what went wrong, do a modification to their system so it doesn't happen again.
Local MP Mike Martin has even called for Mr Hinton to resign.
Dr Rink, who's the Chief Drinking Water Inspector for England and Wales, said that the incident was actually known about for several months, rather than a surprise, as Dave Hinton said. It was avoidable rather than unavoidable. And DWI actually issued advice to South East Water in the months preceding the incident about what they needed to do. And had they followed that advice, they would have avoided this incident.
In a statement, David Hinton says the priority is to improve South East Water and is committed to delivering the infrastructure needed. This is not the first time Tunbridge Wells has seen water outages, and now with David Hinton being held accountable, will things change? Naila Mohammed for KMTV.
And in other news, Medway Council is set to ask for exceptional financial support from the government after a multi-million-pound funding boost that didn't go far enough. The authority has a £7.9 million gap to fill as fair funding didn't meet officer expectations, as local democracy reporter Ollie Leader has been finding out.
The government is giving Medway Council £23 million more, but the council was expecting more. They've now got a nearly £8 million gap to fill. The local authority says the increase they've received is not enough to stave off effective bankruptcy without exceptional financial support from Whitehall to balance the books.
This is when we first wrote to them some time back now. We said we anticipated that EFS for Medway, and it's different for every council, would be a 3-year programme. We're in year 3 of that. So it was an ambition to hopefully not have to use EFS. We regrettably will have to use it, I believe, now, but we'll do so in a way recognising that the figure is reducing year on year.
This would not be the first time Medway Council has asked the government for additional financial support. They say they're facing extraordinary pressures around adult social care, and they say they're trying to find efficiencies and savings in that last 2 months before their budget is due.
It's very key, that word exceptional financial support, which is designed to ensure that the council effectively has a pathway, borrowing to allow the council to have a pathway back to financial sustainability. But the current medium-term financial statements show that that's never going to happen. Effectively, it's going to be borrowing up until the council effectively is reorganised as part of local government reorganisation, with no clear plan in terms of how this authority will get out of that. So we're deeply concerned.
Medway Council hopes income generation and efficiency savings will help financially. But with the council set to vote on the final budget in February, time is of the essence. Ollie Leader at Gunwharf.
And I'm joined now by our local democracy reporter, Ollie Leader, to break this down for us a little bit more. So, Ollie, you've drawn out those broad strokes of what that means in terms of funding and the council, but what would it mean for everyday people across Medway?
So the big issue here for Medway Council is adult social care. It is a huge area for a unitary authority or an upper-tier authority to be dealing with that covers so much, from care homes to support for the homeless, and it's made of constituent parts. Obviously, people are living longer, growing older. There's a cost of living going on at the moment. All of this is driving up costs for the council, both in the services it supplies, but also the demand for those services as well. So it's a big issue for the council. And what this really means in practice is the council needs to get additional support from the government. This exceptional financial support. It's nothing new for Medway. For the last 2 years before this one, they've been applying for this from the government. And it's an issue for lots of councils across the UK as well. There's around 30 councils that get exceptional financial support from the government on a regular basis, and not all of them are poorly financially managed. That would be the argument from people in charge of Medway, that the opposition do have their concerns around how the budget is being managed. They say there could be bigger efficiency savings, there could be money not being spent on big projects, that this isn't a foregone conclusion that Medway Council has to apply for this. The leader of Medway Council would disagree. This is an issue for councils across the country: adult social care, SEND, that's special educational needs, and disability support for young people in the 5 towns and beyond. It is a huge issue for councils, and essentially, if they don't get this exceptional financial support, the councils say they won't be able to deliver a balanced budget. That is a statutory obligation. They have to do it. If they don't do it, they will have to file for effective bankruptcy. It's a Section 116 notice, which basically means they don't know how to manage their money. The government will send in an administrator to manage all the money on their behalf, and they tend to be pretty brutal with their cuts as well.
Thank you so much, Ollie, for bringing us that story. Well, it's time for a short break now, but coming up, we've got plenty more as Kent continues to experience a cold climate, so we've got all the information you need to keep safe in that ice and frost. We'll catch you later. Good, thank you. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. Now some drone and body cam footage reveals the moment a missing man was located near the M20 Maidstone services. The 30-year-old, who was suspected of having a mental health crisis, was found in the early hours on the 20th of December. He made his way into a heavily wooded area near the railway line, removing his upper clothing in very cold conditions. PC Andy Green used a thermal drone to point the handler, PC Tony Vaughan, and police dog Oscar in the right direction, where they found the man and were able to lead him to safety. Now, the waste firm Veolia has had to apologise after footage shows some of their workers taking a homeless woman's belongings in Dover town centre. The onlooker told Kent Online she watched in horror as the workmen disposed of the rough sleeper's belongings, with her saying she's now going to come back and have nothing. The waste contractor says its street cleaning crews will now undertake refresher training to stop a repeat of such incidents. Kent Online shared the footage with Dover District Council, which has sparked an investigation into the situation. And now let's take a look at this week's weather. Looking at this evening, we can see an average of 4 degrees, partly cloudy skies across Kent, some high winds picking up. Tomorrow morning, things are not improving too much, light rain all over, average of 4 degrees, those winds dropping to 5 miles per hour. Tomorrow evening, that rain only getting heavier, temperatures rising a little and winds picking up as the day goes on. And for your outlook over the weekend, Friday unfortunately rainy, but a clear weekend ahead. 4 degrees on Saturday, 5 on Sunday, a bit of sun peeking through finally after all that frost. And we've had a very cold start to 2026 so far, with many areas across Kent being hit by snow in the past week. With that has come very chilly nights and cold days, particularly around the coast of the county. So what should we be doing to make sure we're being as safe as possible in these icy conditions? Well, senior reporter Charlotte Phillips has more.
Snow has fallen across the county over the past week, with sheets of ice laying on top of roads and bodies of water freezing over. The Met Office says that while we've had a very cold start to 2026, daytime temperatures should be a little bit milder in the coming weeks.
We will be holding on to that cold weather into next week. Now, it's not going to be quite as cold, though. Daytime temperatures will be a little bit milder. It's not going to be quite as frosty at night. There will be some frost every now and again, but it's not going to be that harsh frost, that thick layer of ice on your car.
There have been several road traffic incidents across Kent today as the cold spell continues. In Great Chart, near Ashford, a stagecoach bus carrying children to school crashed into a ditch amid the icy conditions. Police, firefighters and paramedics were all called to the scene where no injuries were reported. A car also overturned on the M20 this morning, just after the Maidstone services. The incident was on the hard shoulder of the coastbound carriageway and led to 2 miles of traffic, with 3 fire engines attending the scene. The AA is advising drivers to leave plenty of room between vehicles and to use headlights in heavy snow. If you do start skidding, stay calm, steer into the skid and avoid sudden movements like hitting the brakes. It's not just the roads that are a cause for concern as the cold weather continues, with footage being shared of people standing on a frozen pond. Headcorn Parish Council has issued a warning to parents after its CCTV captured groups of teenagers and children near a water source in the village.
I think it's important to warn parents that in this frozen weather that they need to let their kids know that that frozen over bodies of water are dangerous, or they're potentially lethal. You're talking about minutes, 2-3 minutes that hypothermia and things set in. You know, you've come through the ice, you might drop your phone. You've got to rely on shouting for help and someone hearing you.
With icy conditions remaining across Kent, make sure to take care and wrap up in the coming weeks. Charlotte Phillips for KMTV.
And as Charlotte just said there, that frosty weather's continuing over the week. So how else can we ensure we're staying safe? With some advice, suggest to even walk like a penguin along icy paths to reduce the risk of falling. And to break down these health headlines, I've got Dr. Julian Spinks in the studio with me now. So as we were saying before, I have seen some advice online saying to waddle like a penguin to keep safe. What is this about?
This seems very strange, doesn't it? But of course, penguins spend their life walking on ice and snow. And what it is changing the way you walk slightly. Typical walking is actually permanently falling forward. The trouble is, if your foot slips, you will go down. This technique, you bend your knees slightly, you put your feet out, you put your weight much more over your front leg, and you slightly waddle, I'm afraid. But what that means is that your weight is over your feet all the time, and you're not falling forward, and therefore you're less likely to slip and fall over. Can't completely prevent it, so there's other things you can do, like making sure you've got footwear with grip on the bottom, and just avoiding obviously icy parts if you can.
I see, so it's definitely worth looking a little bit silly to avoid a trip to A&E then.
I'm afraid so, yes. Walk like a penguin, not like an Egyptian.
And as well, how can we keep warm this winter? So we're walking safely. Are we wearing a coat, a scarf? What should we do?
I think the secret is layers. What you're trying to do is trap air between the layers of your clothing. So often multiple layers of thin material may be better than a single chunky thing with it. And if you do those layers, the added advantage is if you get too hot, you can take one layer off and carry on that way. Interestingly, in Japan, where their houses are very poorly insulated, they often wear outdoor clothing inside. So, you know, just because you're inside doesn't mean you can't wear a coat. When you're inside, you've got to try and keep warm. Some people can't afford to heat the whole house, so maybe heat one room and keep that warm. And don't forget what our sort of parents and grandparents used to do, which is use blankets and other things to keep you warm. So you get your own little huddle to keep yourself warm.
And on that topic, keeping warm inside the home, alongside blankets, some people like to use a hot water bottle. But I've heard that there might be some kind of safety risks there. Is that true?
Well, there is, because if you're actually pouring boiling water in, which you shouldn't do with a hot water bottle anyway, into it, especially if it's one of the ones where it's sort of bare rubber, you can burn yourself from it. And in fact, at the very least, what you end up with is a strange rash called erythema abigne, which sort of a mottled rash where you put that hot water bottle. So make sure that the water is off boiling, even if you've got to go back and reheat it. There are sort of electrical ones and various other ones. I don't think you have to go that fancy. But if you're going to put boiling water into your hot water bottle, you're in danger.
I see, and you mentioned there that unfortunately not everyone can heat their homes, or at least perhaps have the heating on throughout the day. So is there kind of a technique to this to keep your house as warm as possible? Should we be putting our heating on at certain times of the day to maximise that warmth?
Well, obviously it gets warmer as you go through the day, and then it cools down again when you're getting to late afternoon. So if you're going to have to pick when you put the heating on, it's going to be first thing in the morning when you're getting up and to warm the house up, and then mid-afternoon onwards. Other things you can do, really simple, and that is to draw the curtains when the sun goes down, sort of 4 or 5, and that will keep some of the warmth in the house. If you can get lined curtains, that's even better. So it's all simple techniques you can do. If you've got a drafty house, if you can reduce the drafts, that's going to keep the warmth in as well.
And we don't have much time, Julian, but I certainly love a hot coffee, a hot tea. Will that help me stay warm?
Well, it'll temporarily warm you up, and you can warm your hands around it, so you'll feel a bit better, but it's not a permanent solution by any means.
Of course, I'll keep that in mind when I'm wearing my many layers. Thank you very much, Dr. Spinks. And with more going on across the county sports scene, here's the sports roundup with Josh Columbell.
Now, a quick look at today's sports roundup. First up, Gillingham's managing director has made comments on the January transfer window with a reduced budget in League Two. Joe Comper admits that they've previously been the club forking out money during the mid-season in the pursuit of instant results, but that won't be happening now. Comper stated, "We need to keep our heads. We can't panic and we can't go back to what we've done in the past, trying to solve problems immediately because we suffer from them years down the line." Manager Gareth Ainsworth has outlined his desire to up the goals within the Gills squad, but has already admitted that the money being spent elsewhere this month is crazy, something that Joel Comper has also backed. Next up, we're looking at Sheppey United, who signed a loan with Kieran Agbaby from Dover Athletic. Agbaby spent a professional season at Gillingham a few years ago and is showcasing what he can do by joining the Sheppey team at the local derby in Swale against Sittingbourne. Sheppey's assistant boss, Tommy Osborne, says Sittingbourne did everything they possibly could to get the game on, but when I was walking around out there, it would have been a difficult playing surface and I could see it was very doubtful. Unfortunately, the game was cancelled due to icy conditions, but the team found a positive from the match being called off. They have been given the chance to train with the new addition. Finally, in some more football news, Sittingbourne's manager, Reece Prestige, is working on new signings amidst their trip to promotion rivals AFC Whiteleaf. With the Brickies being on a superb run of 8 wins and a draw in 9 games, Prestige is looking to strengthen their squad even when faced with a competitive market. He commented saying, "You're in that January period where teams at the top want to strengthen, teams at the bottom want to strengthen to try and get out of it." They've climbed the ranks from 12th to 5th in the Isthmian South East and are visiting 4th placed AFC Whiteleaf on Saturday at 3 p.m.
Seeing all those sports players in shorts and t-shirts at this time of year makes me feel cold, and I'm wearing 3 layers, as Dr. Julian Spinks was advising us all to do. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for at the moment. But stay with us, as we'll be bringing you plenty more news across the county after the break, including revisiting our top story with Finn McDermott bringing you the latest updates as Tunbridge Wells residents are without water again, while the South East Water CEO is questioned in the Houses of Parliament. We've also got a report, on a lady from Chatham who makes jewellery with her mouth. Stay with me on this one. Paralysed, she innovated and found a way. She has her own small business from her house in Chatham, ran solely from her bedroom, although unfortunately set to go blind. She's trying to sell off her jewellery while she can. Coming up, we've also got the sports headlines from across the county, if you missed the ones from before. All that and more coming up after the break. A great show ahead. Stay with us. We'll see you soon. and welcome back to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. I'm Megan Shaw and here are your top stories. First of all, from late November to mid-December last year, households in Tunbridge Wells were subjected to weeks of issues without their water supply, and now around 500 homes have had the issues return. These issues occurred whilst the CEO of South East Water, David Hinton, was being questioned by a committee at the Houses of Parliament. And we've got Finn McDermott down at one of the water supply stations in Bidborough, just outside of the town now. So Finn, I can see you there live. It looks a bit chilly. The Tunbridge Wells situation spanned quite a few months, so can you just break down a timeline of these events for us?
Absolutely, Megan. Yeah, I'm here at Bidborough Village Hall. It's a small village about 20 minutes from the town centre of Tunbridge Wells. And many people here in Tunbridge Wells might have thought, well, it's 2026, it's a new year, but these water issues are still happening. At 3 p.m. yesterday, South East Water told residents that about 4,000 customers in certain areas around Tunbridge Wells, specifically quite rural ones like Bidborough and also some areas to the south, have been affected by supply issues. And you mentioned that timeline there. This comes obviously with all the context of what happened between November and December in Tunbridge Wells, where 24,000 customers were left without water or having some water issues over a period of about 2 weeks, including a notice where they had to boil their water. And South East Water today said they at 11 p.m. I should say last night, they updated their Aqua Alert website saying they expected supplies to return this very morning. However, it is now later in the day. They said these are likely to be intermittent throughout the day, but at this point we have no exact timeline as to when this issue will be resolved.
I see, and now this actually comes amid David Hinton, so the CEO of South East Water, who was questioned yesterday. So tell us, what do we know? What have we heard from David and South East Water at the Houses of Parliament there?
That's right. David Hinton, the CEO of South East Water, was questioned in Parliament in front of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee all around those supply issues back in 2025. He began with an apology to his customers, saying he knows how inconvenient the lack of water is, and he thanked the Resilience Forum, the local MP Mike Martin and the supply chain. Now, we contacted South East Water for a statement about the new water issues, and the incident manager Nick Bell got back to us and said a series of burst water mains in the Tunbridge Wells area following the cold weather has resulted in our drinking water storage tanks running extremely low. We are very sorry that 4,000 customers in South Tunbridge Wells and Frant areas are currently without water. Water supplies in Bidborough will be intermittent through the remainder of the day, while those in South Tunbridge Wells and Frant are unlikely to see their supplies restored until later this evening when water levels in the tanks have recovered. Our customer care team is delivering bottled water to the customers in our priority services register who are most in need, and that's what's happening right here around me. Local residents here for Bidborough have been turning up and been getting bottled water, and I mentioned how rural of an area this is. It's extremely important that these stations are here to give them that water, as without it they'd be, it would definitely affect their day-to-day lives, their work, their family. And yeah, as I've been standing here, people have been turning up very consistently, so much needed. And as I say, we don't yet know the timeline on when water will be fully restored to the residents here in certain areas of rural Tunbridge Wells. Our reporter Naila Mohammed has been finding out more about this story. We can hear from her now.
You may remember at the end of November, Tunbridge Wells lost its water supply. Around 24,000 homes and businesses didn't have access to clean water due to a bad batch of treatment chemicals which led to a water outage. And yesterday, 3 weeks after the boil water ban was lifted, David Hinton, the CEO of South East Water, appeared in Parliament where he answered questions from EFRA and MPs.
The response was by far and away the biggest response we've ever done. And the amount of resources we put on it was by far and away the largest we've ever put.
Well, it was probably the biggest failure you've ever had, was it not?
In terms of customers impacted, this wasn't the biggest impact.
The effects of the water crisis are still being felt in Tunbridge Wells today. Mr Hinton rated how South Eastern Water dealt with the situation an 8 out of 10 and claims that it was unavoidable and he takes ultimate responsibility for it. But what do the people of Tunbridge Wells really think?
They were a bit backwards in coming forwards. I think, you know, the CEO should have got out there on TV and informed the town.
He should invest quite a lot of money in their local infrastructure, in our local water supply, the mains, the reservoirs, so this doesn't happen again.
They need to look at they need to get their systems engineers on it and assess what went wrong, do a modification to their system so it doesn't happen again.
Local MP Mike Martin has even called for Mr Hinton to resign.
Dr. Rink, who's the Chief Drinking Water Inspector for England and Wales, said that the incident was actually known about for several months, rather than a surprise, as Dave Hinton said. It was avoidable rather than unavoidable. And DWI actually issued advice to South East Water in the months preceding the incident about what they needed to do. And had they followed that advice, they would have avoided this incident.
In a statement, David Hinton says the priority is to improve South East Water and is committed to delivering the infrastructure needed. This is not the first time Tunbridge Wells has seen water outages, and now with David Hinton being held accountable, will things change? Naila Mohammed for KMTV.
Naila Mohammed there, and we'll be following that story as it continues at KMTV and Kent Online. Now, resident artist of the University of Kent, Isabel Defoe, is renowned for her works as a writer, director and theatre maker, specialising in verbatim. Her performance was widely received and will be performed in Parliament. That was this evening. But what is verbatim theatre? That's a question I had for Isabel Defoe when she joined us earlier to tell us more.
So Generation FOMO is a verbatim play. So just to put everyone on the same page, I'm a verbatim playwright, and verbatim is where I create a script around interviews that I conduct, and then I weave those stories together to create my narrative arc. So nothing in the play comes from my head. Nothing is fictional. It is all based around interviews that I conducted with young people. A lot of young people, ranging from the ages of about 10 to 25, 26, something like that.
And would you say it's these kind of interviews that really shaped the body of the play and that gave you kind of that inspiration there?
Totally, yeah. The play is completely shaped by the interviews and by what the young people were sharing with me, and they were sharing so candidly because they know that their interviews are anonymous, that their words are going to be revoiced by actors, so they could be as honest as possible about what they consume online, for example, the difficulties of growing up online, and they could be honest because, they know that they're anonymous.
And the play, of course, is around kind of moving away from smartphones and the internet and things like that. Were you all surprised by the responses of young people? I feel like, as a fairly young person myself, there is this kind of stereotype that we love our phones and we're glued to them. Were you surprised by the responses?
Yeah, I was really surprised about how much young people seem to want our help. They seem to want restrictions around their phones. I was really surprised about how they know they're addicted. They put the word addiction on the table. They feel that they have no attention span, and they are angry with the tech companies because they know that the tech companies have got their attention span. Like, that really surprised me, that 14-year-olds could be so angry and knowing that that's what's going on.
I see. And of course, today is quite a special day for you. So how does it feel for your play to be played in Parliament this evening?
Oh my gosh, it means everything. It means everything for those young voices, for those young people that spoke to me and shared their experiences. For them to be heard in Parliament means absolutely everything. And as a verbatim theatre maker, I believe that verbatim has the power to create social change. And it feels like we're doing that tonight, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just Parliament where your play will be shown. Where else is your play being put on?
So we started out. So I am a theatre company that's based here at the University of Kent. We're supported by the drama department here, or we have a residency here, and so the play started off here on campus. And it's grown. We've been on tour twice last year with it. We went on tour mainly to secondary schools all around Kent, and the response has been huge.
And thank you for your insightful responses so far. We have one last question. So, in general, what would you say is the message you want to share through this production here?
I think the main thing is we have to normalize the conversation around what our children are consuming online, and they're finding it difficult to digest such difficult content, and they're not sharing the content that they're watching online because they're nervous that their phones will get taken away from them. We can't take away the tech from them. We've given them the tech, and tech is here to stay. It's not about being anti-tech. It is about us as grown-ups supporting our young people.
And that's all we've got time for on this part before the break, but stay with us, as coming up we've got plenty more. We'll go from theatre to the farm, where Henry Luck, our community reporter, will be reporting on goats that were rescued from kidnapping. Well, not kidnapping, apologies. We'll be speaking to some goats. We'll also be speaking to a woman from Chatham who makes jewellery with her mouth. All that and more. See you later. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. So, melting gold to 1,000 degrees Celsius in your own home might sound impressive enough, but could you imagine doing that without using your hands? Well, for Katrina in Chatham, using her mouth is the only way she can make jewellery, as injuries sustained in the Bosnian War eventually left her paralysed. Running her jewellery business from her bed, however, will soon be no more, as she's going blind. And I went to check out this hidden gem for myself. It's an extensive collection, but what if I told you these were all handmade by a woman who can't use her hands? Kat from Chatham has lived more lives than many, with injuries sustained in the Bosnian War as a teenager, leaving her paralysed in later life. Now, I'm sure we can all imagine how difficult and fiddly it is to make jewellery. Well, imagine doing that with your mouth. Over the years, Kat has made more than 1,000 pieces of handmade silver, gold and cosmetic jewellery. I'm wearing just a few of her pieces, and as you can see, they're really intricate. There's some with gems on, some have stones in, and all of this has been done from her bedroom.
So I will sit in the right position and the table will be in front of me. And I could then pick up the tools myself, like I could pick up this. And so this, let's say this is my tool. And then sometimes I will place the tool there just as a support because obviously I can't grip.
Kat was unable to show us her in action because last year, after 15 years as a jeweller, she had to sell her equipment. Soon she will be blind, after suffering from a number of health issues stemming from spending several years as a prisoner of war, and will soon no longer be able to practice her many creative pursuits which she sees as a lifeline.
For me, it was just to give me something to do. It kept my mind a beat. Because of so much that's happened, this is kind of kept, I can do something. I'm here. I'm not an invisible person. And it makes me feel like I'm a normal human being. Yeah, I may not be able to walk. I may not be able to run with my children. I may not be able, and soon I will be blind, fully blind.
The jewellery here are the last of her creations she still has to sell. And each Saturday she opens her family home to potential customers. But when the inevitable comes, Kat has plenty more ideas to keep herself going and remain positive.
I teaching myself now to make non-silver jewellery, like bracelets over there and necklaces, like semi-precious stone bracelets and stuff like that.
And it's through creating things for other people to have that allows Kat to find the silver lining to her condition. Megan Shaw for KMTV in Chatham. Now it's time to take a look at some more stories over at Kent Online. We'll be taking a look at the drone footage which shows the work being done at the Warren in Folkestone. We'll also hear from the owner of a new community space that opened back in July. And Etaly Reynolds joins me now to go into more detail. So Etaly, tell me, what's going on at the Warren?
So we do have some drone footage which shows sea defence work happening at the Warren in Folkestone. Now, the Warren saw huge cracks appear on the promenade and landslips nearby in 2024. It is a railway line, and to help protect this, that runs between Dover and Folkestone Station, Network Rail began this work yesterday, and it's set to finish in April. The Western Beach and Walkway have been temporarily closed, and South Eastern Railway Chief Operating Officer David Davidson has said this major intervention is a protective step to protect both the railway and the Warren. As well as this work on the Warren, the draining systems on the cliff is also set to be repaired.
I see. Thank you, Etaly. And could you also tell me a bit more about the loft in Folkestone?
Yes, so moving on to the next story. Back in June, the Petticoat Emporium opened, and above it, so did the loft. It was created by Cairo Woodward, who said the idea emerged after he became a father. Now, the space was opened July, so a month after the Emporium, and it was originally a photography space, but it has evolved into a multi-use space described as having 3 pillars.
And you've got that, haven't you,
Yes, we do.
So I think what pushed us to create the loft is a communal need for a space to create.
Thank you.
Not a space that's necessarily told, not necessarily a space in which you're told what you can do, but a space in which you're invited to see what you'd like to do and how far you can really push that. And I think that is the main thing that I think Folkestone needs, or this town needs, is a space that is not capped by somebody, by a company, or by people telling you can't do something. I really want people to see how far the limits of their imagination can take them in this space.
We are going back to you.
And now, Megan, how much do you love a roast dinner?
Well, I used to love one, and I've been vegetarian for 5 years, and it's just never been the same since.
Oh, well, you might be missing out here, because celebrity chef Mark Sargent plans to kind of, I don't know if it's invent, but open a roast dinner delivery service in which he will make and deliver the dinners to people. Now, these dinners, will be delivered on a Saturday, so families can reheat on a Sunday. And in a social media post, he said that this will start out as a limited service, but he hopes that it will go throughout Kent. So dinners right to your front door.
That sounds so exciting. I'm kind of tempted to go back to beef and chicken for that.
Maybe there'll be a vegetarian version.
Thank you, Etaly. Now, don't forget you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging onto our website, kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports, including this one.
In most sports, they say the sky is the limit, but for 16-year-old skateboarding sensation Tay Cunningham, it's actually the ceiling. He's training with one goal in mind, the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. He's gotten to the stage of his training where he says he needs a vertical ramp to drop in from in order to fight on the international stage, but his local venue doesn't have the space. So he's decided to make his own.
The money for the GoFundMe currently is going towards the LA 2028 Games for me to try and make it to there and just qualify and get better and travel to see all these people that are better than me to inspire me so I can get better at skateboarding and improve. And then also for the vert ramp in my local community. I've currently bought a vert ramp, but I need to fund the money to get new surface for it so that it's long lasting, not just for me, for the whole community, because our current closest vert ramp is in Surrey, and I would love to have one in Kent, not just for me, for the whole community, so everyone can get better and to inspire little kids.
Since he got permission from the town council, the ramp will be installed at Lymington Park in Westgate, but for Tay's dad, it's just another step in a long road for the young athlete.
So Tay, it became really obvious Tay was really good. I mean, he entered a few comps, won them all, and then he went to a nationals comp, and he didn't do that well on the first one, but while everybody else was skating the final, Tay was learning 540s, and he got in the car and said to me, basically, I can do everything they can do. I can honestly say within about 3 months, I could not believe how far along he'd come.
Ted is currently fundraising online and is also looking to run 50 kilometres to raise the $7,000 needed for the ramp, with any additional funds going towards travel, coaching and competitions. Watching Tay, I thought I'd demonstrate how high level he is by having a go myself. Now it's my turn. Now, Tay here has been skateboarding for about 12 years. I have very little experience in skateboarding. I can just about cruise around. I can't even do an ollie. So Tay is going to be taking me to the beginner area to see if I can go down a ramp. Now, how easy is that to do for quite a beginner?
Here at Rev in the beginner room, it's perfect because every ramp's really small, so you should be just fine.
All right, brilliant. Well, fingers crossed. I think now's a good time to hang up my board and leave it to Tay and the next generation. If Tay wants to make it to the very top of skateboarding, he knows he doesn't just need to ramp up his training, but ramp up his equipment as well. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Broadstairs.
And a goat sanctuary has just rescued 2 newborn goats which were abandoned in a bin. The Buttercup Sanctuary for Goats in Maidstone were alerted to the presence of Veolia and Biffa by a member of the public. The goats were so young that their umbilical cords were still attached. While the animals are in safe hands, the sanctuary owners were shocked by the situation. And our community reporter Henry Luck has the story.
Baby goats in the bin. That's what Buttercup's Sanctuary for Goats near Maidstone had the misfortune of discovering after they were alerted on Monday afternoon after a member of the public found them. Veolia and Biffa were able to survive the ordeal thanks to the help of vets and a local sheep farm. The farmer was able to give them colostrum, milk that provides vital antibodies.
It's this specifically is obviously I've never heard of anything quite like this. Abuse and neglect cases do come around. They are, I would say, slightly less common than once upon a time, maybe, but still far too common for anyone's liking. I mean, one case is far too many, and it's one of those things like just when being in this sort of job, you see a lot of odd things, and just when you think you've seen it all, something like this will come along and make you realise that, you know, you haven't.
Biffa is currently experiencing lung problems, and Viola is still trying to support her own weight, but the sanctuary says they're showing strong character. The public can support goats like Velia and Biffa by donating to the sanctuary's website. Henry Luck for KMTV.